Hello, welcome to video number 2. My name is Angelina. I am a eurythmist, and eurythmy is the art of movement. And in this videos I would like to share a bit about what it means to be a eurythmist. And today I want to talk about the quality of movement in eurythmy. Make a little start with that, and maybe also what to look at in eurythmy. And for that I would like to start with a different movement art, pantomime. I'm not hugely familiar with pantomime, but I want just to use it as a little example, and I will use the very stereotypical image of a pantomime player in a space where there is for him a wall, an imaginary wall, and will try through his movement make that visible and tell a story, of course, with that. But for now I will just look at the imaginary world he is creating, and he will move in such a way that it will become believable that there is a wall, and as an audience you will almost see it, or at least when I see a video of something like that, it will be very believable, if the pantomime player is any good, that there is a wall. And if you would look at the pantomime player and take away this whole imaginary world around him and just look at his movement, you would say, like, you look at it's very stereotypical, I know. And you would look at a pantomime player doing like this, and you would say, oh, he's practicing to put his hand like that. That would not be a very accurate description of what the pantomime player is doing, or what he's practicing. I think there will be a lot of detail going in imagining this wall and make it consistent, and maybe also the way the wall is, the texture of the wall, and so on. And I'm talking about this because in the same way it's important to look at eurythmy, not in the sense that you just look at gestures, like they're not always that difficult, but look at the imaginary world that surrounds it. And eurythmy will show different things than pantomime, and use different kind of tools and wants different things. But I want to dive into eurythmy from this perspective that we also have an imaginary world, and it's also important in eurythmy that, like in pantomime, if you want to make it all visible, you have to do certain things that it's consistent and believable. And the same goes for eurythmy. When we want to show certain things, we have to move that in such a way that it becomes believable. And what it is we want to try to make believable, I will try to start with talking about that now. First I want to go back to the pantomime player and extrapolate a principle out of the situation that is very important in eurythmy. And on the other hand, it's also extrapolating principles is something we do, I think, in eurythmy. We look at music or poetry or geometry or music and look at basic principles. And if we look at the pantomime player who is in space and who creates an imaginary world around him, we could say the pantomime player is a centre with this imaginary world as a periphery around it. And in the same way in eurythmy, we could see that we have a centre. We take that mostly here. I will talk about that in the next video a bit more, and a periphery of space around us. and well, we use center and periphery in many different ways throughout Eurythmy, and you could also be, for instance, periphery to another center. And center and periphery is something you will find throughout our lives, in the sense of solar systems and atoms, but also in other kinds of relationships in space. And for now I want to take a center here, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, but well, in more or less the center of my screen, and that's the point that I can kind of show you a little bit. And we will have a periphery around it, and there is a difference in quality between a centre and periphery, and although they can differ very much, we take now a dense centre and a periphery that's a little bit more thin. And when I talk about it, I talk about it like there's a substance here, and that's the first thing I think we can put on our list of things we work with in Eurythmy, and it's imaginary substance. And so a dense substance and a fine air substance. Maybe the air is compressed and the air is more light, thin. And what we do in Eurythmy, we will start to move in between those. And we can do that in the sense that we will compress the air and let the air become more thin. And in that sense, we have a kind of force, we pushing it together and then letting it expand again. Contraction and expansion as a very basic exercise of the Eurythmy, and we touch a bit upon number 2, what we do in Eurythmy, and it's using imaginary forces. I am pushing air together. I'm not really, or maybe a little bit, but not in the way, the intensity. I will do it imaginary, and I will push it together, and then it can expand again. And there are a lot of ways you could use these imaginary forces, a lot of ways. I could be sharp, I could be rounding, it could be soft, it can just move through the air, or maybe be moved, or like the center is like, I want out and it's pushing me away. So this whole interaction of forces, which is a huge field, has a huge differentiation, and that is also something we will probably talk about a lot later on, just like a little hint of it. So first we have an imaginary substance, and secondly we have kind of forces, imaginary forces, and we could be the one who uses force, or be the one that's the force is moving. Yeah, so then number 3, which we will talk about in video number 3 more, has more to do with the sensation of these imaginary substances, of these imaginary forces. As we are sentient beings, just like here in life, we can experience the world, and we can also in a way experience our own imaginary world, which is maybe funny in a way, but like maybe the pantomime player who can, when he creates this wall, he can feel it. And yeah, this realm is much bigger, I think, as well. It encompasses who of the feeling world, the soul world of the human being, and the way maybe the pantomime player has a relationship to the wall, whether it's like hurting him or whatever, what is happening. And it maybe also has to do with what we want to show in Eurythmy. We want to work with poetry and music. I talked a bit about that in my last video. Yeah, this will be the topic of the next video of this whole sentient soul world, about the centre we have here in Eurythmy, and yeah, so we'll leave that for now as well. So number 4 has to do with awareness of the basic principles. So we would go back to the start actually, where we looked at, we have a principle of centre and periphery, and we have other principles, and in the way we move we would like to show this principle as well, the connection to that. And if we look at contraction and expansion, the pushing together air and then letting it expand again, we would like to, in a way, I would just make a hint of what we try to do, is that when we push it together, at the same time the awareness of the whole of the space around it doesn't go away, and when we expand, there is awareness that there is a centre. Because when you want to show that something is a centre, for it to be a centre, there has to be a periphery and vice versa. And in the way we move, we try to be aware of that. When we go into contraction, we keep the awareness that there is a periphery and vice versa. And we will move differently because of that. And when you look at that through that lens, you can say whether you believe that or not. And of all those different steps, so 1, the imaginary substance; 2, the imaginary forces; 3, the sentient being within that, and the soul within that, and 4, the awareness of the basic principles. And of all those things, you can say whether or not, in an artistic sense, in a way, if you look at that, is it consistently unbelievable? And artistically we will use that in a lot of different ways, and I can't yet describe them all, of course, but I will make a little video as an example of one of the gestures. Actually, this one, I don't know why I picked it, but I will try to put it in this kind of context. So we're near the end of this video, and I wanted to make a little place for my very scared heart, which is like saying, Angelina, why are you making this videos? That terrifies me a lot. And I wanted to let this worry, or like that I will be moving just while talking, and I won't put a lot of effort in a way in that, and it terrifies me to show that. I mean, it's fine, and yeah, it's okay, but my heart is like, oh, because especially since I'm talking about making it believable and consistent and so on, and it's something we practice a lot too, for instance with contraction and expansion, that our process is fluid and so on, and in many different ways, and something throughout the whole of the training. So yeah, so I know there is something of that there, but I will just be using it, and yeah, I wanted to make like a little corner where I could share this give my terrified heart a little place. And yeah, talking about the heart, next video will be regarding the eurythmical heart and more of the soul and sentient part of eurythmy, and thank you very much for watching.